Hey, what is going on everyone? In this video, I'm comparing the Sony BDP-S1100 Blu-ray media player up against the king of media players, in my opinion, the Sony BDP-S5100 3D Blu-ray media player. In terms of general physical design, like the way they look and attractiveness, I do find that they both look great. It's what you would expect from Sony, but the 5100 looks vastly superior in terms of like just general look compared to the 1100. But if you want a more in-depth analysis of each device, be sure to check out their individual video reviews. You can find links to those video reviews in the video description. Furthermore, in that video description of each video review, you can find which file types are supported by each media player. Now, starting with the front of the 1100, things look pretty simple. You have your Blu-ray tray, which also plays CDs and DVDs. You have your first and only USB port. On the top, you have your eject, play, stop, power on and off button. And moving over to the 5100, again, you also have a Blu-ray tray which plays CDs and DVDs. And just here in the middle, you have a LED notificator letting you know the status of what the Blu-ray player is currently doing. And over on the right, you have the first of two USB ports, and on the top again you have an eject, play, stop, and power on and off button. On the right side of each device, they're identical because both of them have no ports available. Starting with the back of the 1100, on the far left you have the power cord attached. Then next to it you have an Ethernet port which supports LAN 100 for your wired internet connection, HDMI output, and coaxial digital audio output. And over on the 5100, it's almost the same. Again, you have your power cord attached on the far left, digital audio coaxial output, HDMI output, LAN 100 for Ethernet connection, wired internet connection, and the second USB port. Also, in addition, the 5100 supports wireless internet, whereas the 1100 does not. And on the left side of each device, again, you have no ports available. On the right side, you have the 5100, which actually plays back 3D content, which includes Blu-rays, and of course if you have a media file which is 2D, you can actually simulate it and turn 2D content into 3D content, whereas on the left you have the 1100, it supports no 3D output at all. Before I get into the software side of things, I wanted to show you both remotes for each media player. They're the exact same thing. In fact, if you look at the model number of each remote, they're identical. You can actually use either remote for either media player. Okay, so starting off with the software side of things, right now I currently have the 1100 plugged in. And you'll notice it looks very similar to, say, the PlayStation 3 layout, which Sony refers to as their crossbar interface. Over on the far left, you have your system settings and general setup menu, which is very generic, but you have plenty of options to customize. Of course, you have a photo options app. If you have something, say, plugged in a USB stick with photos on it, you can access it from here. Then you have music filtered, and you have a few popular apps like Pandora and stuff. Now, keep in mind, some of the apps you're seeing will vary depending on the region you live in. For example, people living in the US will have different apps from people living in Mexico or Canada, just as an example. So these apps will vary. Over on video, this is where you have a ton of apps. Again, depending on where you live, you can access a USB stick if you have one plugged in. You have more popular services like Netflix, Hulu, and of course you have YouTube. Now, for me to go through all these apps is just not possible. As you can see, the amount available is just absolutely ridiculous. One thing I prefer that Sony had done, this is a problem with both media players, the 1100 and 5100, is that I wish they had put in alphabetical order or some way to keep your favorites, because there's no way of keeping favorites. So if you're looking for a certain app, you have to skim through all of these to find it. Moving over a bit more, you have Facebook and the Opera TV Store. The Opera TV Store, basically, which I demonstrated more in their individual reviews, I'm not going to do too much here, is basically an online service which allows you to access more apps while online only. And of course, you have the Sony Entertainment Network. When selected, for example, if you go to Video Unlimited, it allows you to select from new Blu-ray and DVD releases, movies, which you can watch for a certain price. And over on the right, you have recommended apps. They're not favorite apps, they're just recommended apps, so nothing too special here. Now, everything I've shown you so far is exact same as, say, the 5100. However, here's the major difference. You notice that I don't have an option anywhere here to select the home network. My computer is hooked up to it, my phone is hooked up to it. I can't access anything on my network. This media player, the 1100, does not support any network connectivity at all. But I'll show you that in the 5100 when I have it plugged in. For now, let me just show you something on the USB stick. Both of them output the same clarity of picture quality. The picture quality on both these media players are equal, and they are absolutely fantastic. If you have video content that you can play back and your TV is just that good, you will get some amazing results in video playback. And of course you have the usual play, pause, and all the other good stuff. And of course you have options. You can, do a few more other things, but nothing too important to get into. Now I'm not going to demonstrate picture quality or mention it too much about the 5100 because again, everything I'm demonstrating is the exact same thing in the 5100. So what I'm going to demonstrate now is Netflix. Now when it comes to the Netflix app, both of them have about the same startup time, which is approximately 15 seconds. They're pretty equal, and of course if your internet connection is great, you have control, very easy control over fast forwarding and pause. Of course this speed will vary depending on your internet connection speed at home. The general interface of Netflix is very quick, very smooth. You have search up here. You can search by category. For the most part, the Netflix app is a pretty smooth experience compared to other media players I have used. Now what you're seeing now is the general interface of the YouTube app. This menu style here is called the YouTube Leanback app. Actually, it is the YouTube Leanback app. It was created by Google for TV experiences, whether you're playing this app through a TV or a media player as I am now. It's generally meant for your TV regardless of the fact. It has everything you would need. You can search through trends, you can search through the search navigation itself. I'm not really a fan of this experience, but once the video is up and running, it runs fairly well. So let me show something for you guys. The YouTube app does support HD playback. Of course, what I've noticed is that it takes a few seconds for the content to go from blurry to HD quality. That's probably something to do with my internet connection, or maybe the app itself is just too slow to keep up because I don't have that problem on my PC or tablets. But regardless of the fact, it does indeed play HD content on YouTube. Up until now, everything I've shown you was the exact same thing between each device, as I mentioned earlier. Now I'm going to show you the key differences between the 1100 and the 5100 in terms of software. What I have plugged in right now is my 5100 media player. You'll notice that there's a new option available through the categories, and it's basically the option to select playback of media through my network. For example, here's the first thing you'll see is actually my router. If I were to plug in a USB stick into my router with some media content on it, I could access it and play it from here. And it plays everything. MKV, MTS file formats, everything. Now, I also have access to my computer. Now, this is good and bad, and here's why. The good is that I can access content from my media over my home network. It's great. But the unfortunate part is that this media player only supports playback of content from my computer if it's shared through Windows Media Center on my computer. Why is that bad, you might ask? Well, Windows Media Center on a Windows computer does not support playback of MKV. So unfortunately, I cannot play back MKV files over my network from my computer, only things that are supported with Windows Media Center. Now, another key difference which I mentioned earlier is that the 5100 supports 3D playback. Now, what basically happens is if you have, say, a 2D video, which I'm playing now, if I were to pause or just simply press the options button on the remote, here you'll see I have a new option here called 3D menu. Selecting it will allow me to turn on simulated 3D, which will basically turn 2D content to 3D, and here I can actually control the depth from low, medium, high. Be warned, going higher doesn't actually make it a good thing. It actually makes the depth too high and actually start blurring the picture and give you a headache. But this will differ between people and videos I watch, suppose, but the option is available for you to turn 2D to 3D. Moving along on the general interface, if you go over to network, you notice that I have the same apps, Facebook, Opera TV Store, but I also have a web browser. Now, I have demonstrated the web browser in the 5100 review, which again, the video link is in the video description. Quite honestly, it's nothing spectacular as I demonstrated in the review, but the option is available here in the 5100 and not in the 1100. The rest of the options available are pretty much identical. There's nothing really too different here. Of course, if you go to the video section, because this is a 3D media player, you have an additional app which wasn't available on the 1100, if I can just find it for you guys. As I mentioned, it's annoying to go through this many. Here we go. 3D Experience. 3D Experience is basically an app made by Sony, which allows you to play 3D content. There's nothing much to go through, to be honest. They're mostly video clips and movie trailers. All in all, there isn't much more to show you guys. As I mentioned, if you want to see a lot more in-depth detail, be sure to check out the individual video reviews of each media player. The links are in the video description. So that's just a very quick comparison. Honestly, in my personal opinion, this is just simply my personal opinion, the 5100 is vastly superior, not just because it has 3D output capability, and I do have a 3D TV at home, but for even people that have a 2D TV, you might want to get that capability of the wireless network adapter built inside, and of course home networking playback. It's pretty, it's a pretty nice feature to have. But that's my personal opinion. I really prefer the 5100. I don't mind paying the extra money for it because, in my personal opinion, again, it is the best media player I have ever used. Despite the lack of the poor network playback of computers, it plays DVDs, Blu-ray discs, and CD disc. It has played every single file type I've ever thrown at it on a USB stick, and overall, it is very, very fast and responsive. But again, that's just my personal opinion. Now, if you want to see each media player compared to the current standard king of media players, which is the Western Digital TV Live media player, you can also find a link to that video in the video description. But I'm going to wrap it off. This is enough talking. So if you guys found this video useful, be sure to check out my Facebook, Google+, Twitter links in the video description. Hit the like button. It does help. Subscribe, and thanks for watching.